As you guys know, a lot of the back to basics sessions I like to do, I want it to be interactive for you guys. So I hope that you guys brought your laptops. I see one, it's bright red, can't miss it. But if you did not bring your laptops tonight, that is okay. You don't need to worry about the slides. I'm going to point out a couple things that even if you don't have the slides, there will be instructions for you to follow on your own time at home. Alrighty, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Mark. I'm pretty much a volunteer like many of you guys, just a regular member, just trying to help out where I can and kind of share some of the things that I learned, throughout my career. And a lot of the back to basics sessions that I do, I want you guys to be able to get immediate value from it and be able to start using it immediately. With that being said, a lot of these are geared for beginners. So if you're like a PowerShell expert, you might not find this interesting. But if you've never used PowerShell before and you're like, oh, well, here's how I can get started without like all the, hash table and verb, noun, whatever. Like, I'm not doing all that. We're going to go straight to what is it, and here's how we're going to use it. All right, let me make this presentation mode. That's not the right button. Presentation mode. All right. PowerShell Basics, an introduction to scripting. Will we get to scripting? Maybe. It depends. All right. So what is PowerShell? What can you use it for? Tips and tricks to get started. Challenge-based learning, which I'm sure all of you guys have seen. I really like that style of learning. And then some resources that you guys can check out on your own time. So on the bottom left, there is a tiny URL. That is the website for the instructions. We build out all the instructions in Notion, and then we can easily just publish them on a website. What that allows us to do is, if we make a typo or we need to make updates to it, we just make the update in Notion, and we tell you to refresh your page. So there's no printouts, we just change it on the fly. All right, so what is PowerShell? It's a cross-platform task automation solution made up of a command line shell, scripting language, and configuration management framework. PowerShell runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. Okay, cool. So long story short, PowerShell is a command line. You can build scripts off of it. You can do, depending on who you ask, you can do anything with PowerShell. PowerShell is pretty awesome. You can do simple things like get your IP address. You can do advanced things like disable thousands of users in one script across multiple domain controllers. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with it, even parsing your event logs. There's a reference if you guys want to view the Microsoft learning pages. The Microsoft documentation is pretty good, so if you guys have questions about what a thing does in PowerShell, I always recommend start with the Microsoft page and then go from there to figure out where you want to troubleshoot from. All right, so what can you use it for? As you can see, making your life easier. Automating tasks, taking care of multiple things quickly, and having fun. You can print hello world in like 20 different colors. It's awesome. Yeah. You can set up executables to run on certain tasks. You can trigger if conditions are met. You can configure entire domain controllers. You can configure multiple domain controllers at once. Just a whole bunch of things that you could do with PowerShell. So PowerShell versus PowerShell ICE. So on your left is your PowerShell, and then on your left is your PowerShell, and on your right is your PowerShell ICE. So the PowerShell is just a regular command line terminal. It's very similar to your Linux terminal, your command prompt terminal, and that's really all it is. You can still tap things out, of course, but on the right side, you have your ICE, which is the integrated scripting engine. And what's really cool about this, and we'll see an example, is that on the top pane, which is called your scripting pane, it has your line numbers, and you can stack all your stuff as your script before you hit run. So you can check for typos. You'll see how your different script blocks will change color depending on what command you're running, what parameters you're giving it, what switches you're giving it, calling different attributes and methods. All that will change colors within that scripting pane. So how do you get to either one of them? The easiest way is to open up your Start menu, type in PowerShell, and start searching for it. So you'll see we have PowerShell ICE, PowerShell x86, PowerShell ICE x86, and you can run them as administrator if you want to. And on the there's a picture in the way. There we go. All right, so like I said, you get to use the scripting pane. So you can see how the commands are in one color. We use the pipeline. We put the next command on another line. We used our curly braces. We're calling our attributes, and you start to see things changing colors, like with the double quotes as the string. It's really a great way to keep your script nice and neat. You could do this entire script in PowerShell, but it's going to be all one line. And if you press enter, then you lose it, and you have to press up to get to your history, and then click somewhere within it. And this is just really easy. And then on the right side, within ICE, you also have your command add-on. So let's say you don't really know what you need, but maybe you know a keyword like, hey, I need to get my IP address. You can type in IP address in the search bar, and you can see all the commands that are associated with that. All right. So here's where we actually get into kind of the meat and potatoes of tonight's talk. So tips and tricks to get started. So the first thing I want to point out is you can tab things out. So what that does is it saves you typos, it saves you time typing, and if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you can just start putting letters and start tabbing to see what your options are. Tabbing things out is really awesome. Everybody should be doing it. And that applies not just to ICE, but Linux, command prompt, all the other terminals. Then we have some commands that, if you're a beginner, you should be associated or start learning these commands. Get help, get member, get alias. So these three things, get help is, as you might expect, it's going to give you the help info on whatever command you're looking at. And we'll take a look at that example right here. So get help for get alias. And you can see what the help menu is telling you. It gets the aliases for the current selection. Get member. So when you are working in PowerShell and you enter a command, it's going to return some data to you. However, it doesn't return every single field of data. So get member, what that does is it helps you see what all the options are that you have available to return to you and to manipulate. So pipelines, we're going to use that to string multiple commands together. We're going to take the output of one command, pipeline, and use the results of that as the input for the next command. Braces, you're going to use these for some of your arguments, some of your attributes. So for your for each statements, if you want to wrap things within your different conditional statements, you're going to be using braces a lot. And then your single versus your double quotes. So there's a couple things for your single versus double quotes. One of them being is a string literal and string expandable. And we'll get into that. All right, taking notes. This is not PowerShell related. However, when you're working on some of these challenge-based learning, it's really great if you guys take your notes. Not only are you doing the command, but then you're writing it down. Hey, I wrote this command, here's what it did for me, and then here's the answer for what I needed. Then you save it, and when you have a challenge similar to that in the future, you can see what you did and how it all worked out, and maybe your thought process, and it'll help you solve another problem. So I put a few options up here: Obsidian, Notion, and OneNote. Obsidian is free. It's a pretty good tool, which is pictured on the top. What's cool about Obsidian is you can tag things. You can tag your pages. And then you can throw it into a graph, which is what you see on the right side. And you can see like all the things that have that tag. So like you could tag it PowerShell, or you could tag it get help, or you could tag it get child item, or whatever the case might be. Notion, which is what I use, there is a free version. I use the paid version. It's only $10 a month for one user. And what I can do here is do things in Markdown. I can put code blocks. I can put pictures, bullet lists, tables. I can link it all together. But most importantly for me is I can publish it as a website and share it out to all of you. And then OneNote, it's a Microsoft product. I like OneNote. I use it at home. I use it at work. It's really easy to use, simple. So if that's your jam, feel free to use that. And of course, you guys could do Notepad, Notepad++. You guys could do, what's the one that's built into Kali? Cherry something? Cherry Tree. Write it down in your notebook. Whatever the case might be, right? Just do your best to document things. All right. Challenge-based learning. So this is a website called Under the Wire. Now, some of you might be familiar with the website called Over the Wire, and that is more of Linux learning, web exploitation, and other war games. Under the Wire is the same, but for PowerShell. So, as an example, and we're going to check this out today, you're going to log into the first level. You're going to SSH into Under the Wire, level 1, and you're going to follow the challenge. And the answer to that challenge is the password for the next level. All right, cool. We're almost through the PowerPoint, guys. So here's another good slide to take a picture of. This is some resources that I put together for you. Basically, these are all the resources that I use when I'm Googling how to do things. PowerShell in a month of lunches, they have books, they have audiobooks. Underthewire.tech, which is what you just saw, challenge-based learning. Iron Scripter, Hey Scripting Guy. Those two are really good for trying to find tips and tricks on what you're trying to accomplish with some automation. Hey Scripting Guy, I think he retired, but there's still a lot of good articles out there that he wrote. And SS64. So SS64 is what is posted up on the picture. And it just has a whole bunch of commands that you can just click on and be like, what does this do? And how do I use it? So SS64 doesn't have just PowerShell. It has Linux, Bash, like all this other stuff that you guys could look into. So SS64, pretty good website. All right, so that's all the PowerShell slides. I'll pause here for questions. Question?
How good are some of the AI LLMs at creating your scripts?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. I like them. You could use, ChatGPT for being like, hey, I want to automate this thing. What do I do?
Right. Give me the PowerShell script for
Yeah. Yeah, and what's even cooler, if you guys take a step further, you can be like, well, explain to me why you did this. And it'll tell you exactly why it did the things. Now, is it perfect every time? I don't think it's good at math, but that's just my experience.
It all adds up.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely if you guys have access to ChatGPT, good resource, or whatever LLM. Any other questions?
Just a quick one. What's the syntax for commenting, like in a PowerShell script? The syntax for commenting?
For
Commenting, like is it a slash or something like that to make a comment in a script?
it's a pound sign.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. And then if you want to do a comment block, it's an arrow and a pound sign, and then at the end of that block, a pound sign, and then the closing arrow. All right, any more questions? Cool. So, I have some shameless plugs, guys. So, we have a Discord. So if you guys ever have questions, someone there is typically online. So feel free to join, it's free. We have the server boosted, so we can do video calls, we can do just a whole bunch of stuff. There's tons of topics in there like jobs, mentorship, general fun tools, red team, blue team, AI. Just a whole bunch of different topics, because a whole bunch of people have different interests. So you'll see a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of people doing home lab setups, troubleshooting Kali Linux, or whatever the case might be. All right, and then the second link, which is the QR code, call for back to basics speakers. I use that phrase lightly, but basically, if you guys are interested in doing a back to basics session, please feel free to fill out this form. All we ask for is an email, the topic you want to do, and what month that you would prefer to do it in. We only have 10 more meetings, and we can't promise anything, but if you're interested, just let us know and we'll figure out what we can do. All right. With that being said, we got 30 minutes. So I set aside some time to do some over-the-wire stuff, but what I'll show you is the Notion page first, which is we have tons of topics, tons of workshops, tons of content that we've created since we started doing this. So we got all this stuff. All right, so this Notion page is basically more details of what we just put in the slideshow. All right, so I'll just kind of scroll down a little bit. So what is PowerShell? We went over that. What can you use it for? PowerShell versus PowerShell ICE. We have the bullet points, but we also have the instructions on how to get there. So open. Why are we like this? How we get there. And then there's a script block. You can just hit this button, copy, and paste it into your ICE terminal. I already wrote the script. It's just getting your IP address, and then a couple of other things to show off what you can do within ICE. And then, like we talked about, tips and tricks to get started. This just kind of is the written down version of what I talked about. So if you guys forget what I talked about and you just want to read, here it is. All right, so all the commands that I talk about, like get help, I put what it does, I put the link to the Microsoft article, and then I put a screenshot of what it does. So we have get help, which will show you the information for that command. I put update help here, which is not in the slides, but when you run get help, it's going to tell you we don't have all the information, run update help. And basically, it's just going to update your help files. So it'll update. Then, we talk about pipelines again. We talk about get member. So here's an example of get child item piped to get member. And you can see that you have more options available to you as to what you would initially see if you were to just run the command without knowing what extra stuff that you had available. And we'll see that. And then, of course, we have get alias. Here. And you can use get alias in two, oh my goodness. Touchpad's killing me here. Okay, so you can use get alias in two different ways. You can take the full command and you can say get alias, tag definition, get child atom. And what it will return to you is, like you can see here, all its aliases, dir, gci, ls. Things that you're probably familiar with either in Linux or command prompt. Alternatively, because a lot of people, when you're going on Google and trying to find scripts, people try to shorthand their scripts. So it'll just be things like GCI, whatever. And you're like, well, what's GCI? Right? And so you get alias GCI and it'll tell you what it is, get child item. That's important because if you guys ever get into blue teaming, forensics, and you see things like IEX, and you're like, what's IEX? Is that good or is that bad? And typically that's bad. We don't like invoke expression very much in cybersecurity. But they'll use IEX or a method to get there, like calling different characters out of a string and combining them all to eventually make the command. So get alias is going to be a powerful tool if you're just starting out. All right, and then of course I have an example of the braces. So here I use getChildItem again. I want to recurse all of the C drive. So basically what I'm doing is listing all the contents in C drive and within every folder. But I don't want to get every single item. I don't want to see it. I just want to search it all. So I'm piping the output of getChildItem to where object, which is basically a filter. So where the object is, its full name, like C Windows System 32 Notepad. And basically what I want to do, we're missing some stars here. I'll fix that later, is I want to see where Notepad lives. And you could drop off the entire file path and just search for Notepad, because if you see notepad.exe not in System32, probably want to go check that out. That's not normal for it to be not in System32. All right. So you can just copy and paste this command into your terminal. There is a typo in here. I'm going to fix it later. Basically, it's missing wildcards on both ends. And you can use it in your for each iterative blocks. I didn't really go over for each in tonight's talk because I was like, I don't know how many of the beginners will be using for each statements. But if you guys are interested, just let me know. We can go over that too later. All right, so here we scroll down, single versus double quotes, and here's our examples. So we're saying that the variable I is 5, and then in the double quoted string, we're saying the value of $I is $I. And as you can see, the output is the value of 5 is 5. But if you put it in a single quoted string, what you'll see is the output becomes the value of $I is $I. So string literals and string expandables. Okay. So it brings us to our challenge-based learning, which is underthewire.tech. I bring the website for you, kind of show you what to do. And so the first challenge is called Century. When you guys start working on this, go from top to bottom, because it starts really basic and then it starts getting harder. And I would say here that there's multiple ways to do things. I tended to do things in ways that I had fun and to get it as specific as I could. And that was just so I could learn things. So as we continue to scroll down this website, I've given you the answers for the first 5. So, we see SSH Century 1. There's the domain or system that you're SSHing to. It's port 22. You type yes to the prompt if you've never connected before, and then you type in your password. And then you have access to the thing. And then it goes from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. I'll pause here for any questions. Is anybody following along on their own computer with this? Got one. 1.5. Okay. So any questions? That's not a question. That's okay, we'll take it.
Can you post the link, the TinyURL link to the Discord?
Yeah, I'll do it later. All right, so I sent one up to the live demo gods tonight. So we'll see how this works. Control enter. All righty. So we'll just kind of walk through it. We'll bring up the website. We'll make the font a little bit bigger. How's that? Better? Better. Cool. I'll go under the wire.tech. You'll come up here to War Games, and the first one we're doing is Century. I didn't bring my glasses. We'll be fine, I think. Okay, so first we're going to 0 to 1. So like the picture says, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So we're going to SSH into Century 1 at century under the wire.tech on port 22. And you can use any SSH client. I'm just using the built-in Windows native one. Linux has its own. I think Mac OS has its own. You guys could use Mobile Xterm, PuTTY, VS Code, whatever floats your boat. It doesn't matter. Because once we authenticate in, we're going to be on their system. And as you can see here, the prompt now says PS. That means we're in a PowerShell prompt. So even though I'm using command prompt, when I SSH in, it drops me into a PowerShell session on their system. All right, so we've logged in. So now we got to go to the next challenge, which is 1 to 2. All right, so the password is the build version. So if you don't know what to do here, all you have to do is Google what is the build version of the instance of PowerShell. So we're just going to Google it real quick. And just kind of off the bat, we see to get the PowerShell build version, you can use the $PS version table automatic variable. So let's go ahead and try that. So $PS version, can I just tab it out? I sure can. Thank God. All right. And as you can see here, if you scroll down through the properties, we have build version, which is 10.0.14393.7604. So we'll assume that that is the answer. So what I'm going to do, because I'm live demoing, I'm going to drop it in a plain text notepad, and I'm not even going to save the notepad. If we lose it, we lose it. All right, so I'm going to exit out of Century 1. Let me double check to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Build version. Okay, so now we're going to Century 2. So we're going to change Century 2. The password. Control C. Drop it here. Right click. Enter. And that's how we get to number 2. So, any questions on how this works? All right, continue on. We got time. All righty. So, we'll come back to the website. What's the challenge? We're going 2 to 3. 2 to 3. Name of the built-in commandlet that performs the wget-like function within PowerShell, plus the name of the file on the desktop. And so if you look at the notes here, they give you examples of what it could be. wget-like function. So I wish I had practiced this beforehand. So you guys are going to get it live on the fly. Yep, that's what I was going to do. I was also going to Google it, but So you could do get alias. Come on, Tap, help me out here. All right, wget. So we see here that the alias for wget is invoke web request. That's another good one if you guys are blue teamers to learn. But if we want to Google it, PowerShell wget equivalent. And yeah, same thing, invoke web request. So then the rest of the question is plus the name of the file on the desktop. So like we saw in the examples earlier, with using getChildItem, it's like dir, it's like ls. So we could do something like this, getChildItem. If we look at the prompt, we're already on the desktop, so we don't really need anything else. And we see that the name is 443. So what I'm guessing is that the password is going to be some version of invoke web request 443. And I feel like that's not going to be completely right, but because here it's in all lowercase. Yeah. So I'm going to change that to lowercase. Just follow the example. All right, so I'm going to exit out here, and we're going to century 3. It worked. Cool. All right, we're on a roll. It's almost too good to be true. All right, 3 to 4. We got time. I will take suggestions from the audience, though. All right, the number of files on the desktop. Okay, I got it. So let's just see what's on the desktop. getChildItem. Okay, well, that's a lot. But just kind of through a quick browse, it says like count me 1012. I can just tell just eyeballing there's not 1,000, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to count them all. So what you can do in PowerShell is you can wrap a command and then call an attribute or a method. So I'm going to use getChildItem again. I'm going to wrap it in parentheses. Then we're going to call a method. Count. Okay, didn't tab out, but still works. So we see here that it counts the files, it counts the output of the getChild command, and that is 123. And if you wanted to Google that, because let's just assume that we did not know the dot count, will be like this, oh my God. PowerShell, how to count files. You could use measure object, but as you can see here in this code, you see the same getChild example. The only difference is they put a direct path, a very specific path. They wrapped it in the parentheses and they used dot count. So if you want to know what dot count is, PowerShell, what is dot count? Property used to determine the number of items in a collection, such as an array or list. So, as you can see, we are on the right track here. So, if the password is 123, it would have been funnier if they made it 12345. All right, so go ahead and exit on to century 4. And we're in. Bonus points if you wear your hacker hoodie while doing this. Alrighty. So we're going 4 to 5. The name of the file within a directory on the desktop that has spaces in its name. All right, so what do you guys think we should do first? list out what we have on the desktop, what command would that be? Get child item? Okay, let's do it. I said, let's tab it out. All right, so we have a directory. Can you open me? Now, kind of looking at this name, you can't really tell that it's a directory, right? But maybe if we see what attribute we could use, let's see here. Maybe if we do attributes. Select object name attributes. Cool. So if you had that attributes, you would have known that was a directory. But that's an example of showing not every property is going to be returned to you by default, which is where that get member comes into play. All right, so we know that it's now a directory, and we need to find out what's in it. We can do two things here. We can either change the directories and see what's in it, or we can just get child item to see what's in it without changing directories. So we'll go ahead and just do get child item. And who knows how to navigate to a directory when the directory has spaces in its file name? Double quotes, single quotes. All right, we'll try both. I don't know if it'll work. I sent one up to the live demo guys, but who knows? Okay, so that did work. Someone said single quotes. That worked. Well, let's say that you didn't know to use either of those. What you could do is start typing the first word can and then tab. Yes. If you guys don't know how to do it, tab it out. Cool. So now we see that the name of the file is the password, which is 6265. Cool. So we'll go ahead and move right along. 6265. All right, and here we go. Any questions so far? Does this make sense? Everyone's liking this? Are you guys going to do it when you get home? Hey, I mean, if you put it in the Discord, someone will help. Yeah, and then alternatively too, so to get the very first password for all of these challenges, they store it in their Slack channel. So you just join their Slack and you get the first password for each war game. All right, so we're going 5 to 6. Short name of the domain in which this system resides, plus the name of the file on the desktop. If the short name of the domain is blob and the file on the desktop is named 1234, the password would be named blob1234. Did you just call me blob? Okay. Let's see here. I do not know off the top of my head. 5 minutes. Okay, we got 5 minutes. But if I was to do something, nope, I don't know. Power, not gumbo, PowerShell, find short domain name. Okay, so we can use an environment method. I don't really like that answer though. Can we use get AD domain? Yay, okay, cool. Okay, so if we know that, maybe we can do like this, where object No, let's not do it that way. Get member. All right. Child domain, domain mode, domain sid, domain name. Okay, so let's try this. Select object name. Okay, so our domain name, the short version, is under the wire, I think, plus the name of the file on the desktop. And because I'm running out of time, I'm going to use an alias, GCI, 3347. So under the wire, 3347. All right, wish me luck. Six, and paste. Cool, it worked. Cool. We've got 2 minutes. So I'll open up for any final questions. If you guys want to help out, I'm going to put that QR code again. So for all of you who missed it, if you guys are interested in doing back to basics sessions, just fill out that form. I'm happy to take a look at what you guys want to propose to talk about. Yep, all good, all done. All right, guys, that's it.